To make a move like that, you have to have kahunas and conviction.
Long-term, I'm bullish. We could see about a 20% correction next year.
This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial. Hi, everybody. This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. And on today's episode of the financial quarterback, we're going to attack the whole notion of kids. That's what we're going to talk about today. Kids, are they a financial blessing, or can even have kids during a recession? Is it too difficult to have children in today's economy? You're going to be surprised what I think. But first, let's talk about having kids in a recession. Inflation has destroyed everyone's diaper budget, and it's become one of the biggest challenges for people, parents or not. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Ludwig Institute for Shared Economic Prosperity, they put the true rate of unemployment at 24.2%. And I would agree with that. I think, if you go to a party, right? Talk to 10 people, and I bet you 2.4 of them are working not at their original job, getting paid at their optimal rate. Does that make sense? So when somebody has a job at working at Home Depot or Walmart or Target, they're fully employed, right? But maybe they were a computer programmer making $100,000 a year. Now they're making 50 or 35. You don't see that reflect in the data. So people feel the pinch in the wallet due to rising rates. So how do kids factor into that? Well, I've had 7. And with each new child, I believe children are actually a gift. So children are your greatest form of wealth that you could bestow on the world, that you could have. So even if you're struggling living paycheck to paycheck, if you have a lot of kids, you have a lot of love. So do not let the pinch at the grocery store prevent you from having children. By the way, broader wise, the economy needs more children. We need more producers. We need more consumers. We need more taxpayers. So Elon and other people have decried the low population rates, the low birth rates. And if you look at any rising economy, they will have higher rates of childbirth. From my own experience, having a new baby makes me want to work harder. It gets me jazzed. So I totally disagree that kids are a net negative cost-wise. I think kids are a net positive. What connects you to the why? So I would argue that for financial prosperity in your life, you need to be connected to a greater and bigger why. You can't these people have nothing to live for. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. No, you want your name to outlast. A godly person leaves an inheritance. Get people who say, I don't want to leave my kids inheritance. Who doesn't want to leave their kids better off than they were? If that's not you, there's something wrong with you. I think it comes from when we were kids. Were you taught that we were overpopulating the earth? Are you too young for that? When I was a kid, think about how depressing it is. Go to school and you're taught, we're going to overpopulate the earth, and by the year 2020, our earth won't exist. That's what they taught me as a kid. The ice caps will melt, It was what I would call climate alarmism. I don't want to have a climate debate. I'm not a scientist. But I found it interesting that going to school, class of 99, that it was kind of a depressing lot in life. And I think some way ingrained with this overpopulation myth, there was a myth that the world was overpopulating. And that if you had more kids, you would overpopulate the earth. And you couldn't afford to have more kids. Well, what is the measure when you say, I can't afford it? Does that mean you're thinking, I can't afford a $50,000 a year college bill? Well, I think in the future, by the way, college is all going to be online. I think public universities will become obsolete. What's the point? You could do that online. More people now get educated listening to my show on podcasts or listening to YouTube or watching. You can watch YouTubes by MIT professors. Do you really need a traditional 4-year degree? I love education, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying, do we really need it? In a lot of ways, so I think the impetus pushing back against kids is stemming from myth that we're overpopulated. And it's also stemming from the fact that people don't have a bigger view. They're not tethered into their why. And I think if you have kids, you're going to have a reason for getting up in the morning. You're going to have a reason for working 9 to 5 because you want to pay that mortgage. You want to give your kids a better tomorrow and a brighter future. So that's going to give you the gusto to raise your prices if you're a business, to work 2 jobs, to work more hours. I don't know. It's my perspective. I don't think kids, and I have 7 kids, so I think I'm an expert in this. I remember people telling me when I was a kid, not when I was a kid, I guess I was a kid, in my 20s when we started having kids, oh, you say, your idealism will change. I don't know. My kids are pretty good. I was my own, I'm a CEO of our company, but I had to schlep out to Long Island like every week and New York and all over the place. And now because of Zoom, I don't have to commute. I saved like 4 hours a day? That's not just 4 hours. It's 2 hours there. You're stopping to go to the bathroom. You're stopping for coffee. Now, and I'm still working the same, 9 to 5, 10 to 6, but I don't have the schlep there and the schlep back. So those hours are spent with my kids. So the changing nature of work, I think, is pro-family. And it's probably pro-women working and pro-men working. It's interesting to note we're in a lot of schools in like after school sports with our kids. I feel bad if you're a working parent, right? You're working 9 to 5. Then you're coming home for your kid's baseball game or soccer game. Then they're going to bed, then they're going to school. So the only time you see your kids is if they're at sports. And occasionally, my wife, who stays at home, will need a break, right? And she won't be at the sporting function. And like the other moms might judge her. Oh, why she's not there. But she's with them for the whole 8 hours. And they're not even really with their kid. They're just observing their kid play sports. And it's like a coffee clutch where my wife is actually engaged. And our kids are very well behaved. So, I'm very blessed. But, there are people who can't financially cut it on one parent's salary. I'm casting no judgment there. It's just, I think it's one of these things where there are things programmed in us in society, right? You have to have 2 cars. Do you really have to have 2 cars anymore if one parent works and one does not? So that further decreases your costs. So you can save a lot of expenses by having 1 car, 1 person work, have Zoom, have Instacart, and you could work in the home, right? Nobody's saying you can't bring some income in to the family. But I wonder if you also look at managing expenses, right? There's 2 sides of the equation, your income and your expenses. But think about your expenses, tolls, gas, taxes. Like you have to look at things holistically when you're having a family. 70% of American mothers with children under 18 are in the labor force. Religious Christian mothers work. Liberal feminist mothers work. Poor mothers work. Rich mothers work. Democrat, Republican, black, brown, and white mothers kiss their little ones goodbye and trudge them off to their jobs at the office, factory, restaurant, medical center. But that's my point. Is that something societally ingrained, or is it an economic necessity? I would say for at least half that number, it's probably an economic necessity, but the other half might be because they want to work. I remember there was the old adage of like, you have to be financially secure to be married and have a baby. I always thought that was hogwash. Like you're never going to be financially there. You're never ready to get married. You're never ready to have kids.
That also leads into parents having children older, and there's a lot of complications that come with having kids older, especially for women.
You have fertility. We have dear friends, and they're getting married at like 48 and 40 or whatever, and they can't have kids, can't have children anymore. So then they got to spend more money on fertility treatments.
Yeah.
And it's tough once you freeze your eggs to have kids. So
no guarantee.
I don't know. For me, I can trace a lot of the success in my business to having children. It gave me incentive. And really in your 20s and 30s, I'm an advocate of young marriage and young kids. If it works out responsibly, you get counseled the right way. I'm not talking to be financially irresponsible. I'm just saying you're never going to be able to afford it in your mind. Does that make sense? But it happens. God provides. You don't, what do you want to give your kids a Corvette for 16? I don't. I'm going to give my kids, old cars they had. Make sure they're fixed up. So I think a lot of this financial stability, though, and parents feeling the need for financial stability is childcare now is a big business. I think before it was like the little, business. Oh, we'll take, $800 a month. Now we want $2,000 a month for child because they know how much they're in demand. Investment News says how having kids can make clients richer. Exactly my point. They're saying it actually teaches you the habits you need. Raising children is fulfilling in its own right, but it can also lead to improved financial behaviors. The cost of raising a kid, according to Emil Halez, is more than $250,000, not including college. So it would seem to follow that parents are worse off financially than those who are child-free. Not so, according to some data and evidence from researchers and financial advisors. Research published in 2018 by University of Alberta sociologist Michelle Moroto found that the wealth effect of having children is unequal across wealth levels. Among families at or below the median, children of all ages were associated with wealth declines, likely due to the cost of childbearing. However, at the 75th percentile and above, wealth increased with the presence of younger children, but decreased after those children reached age 18. According to Laura Varis, CEO of consumer research from Hearts and Wallets, she says choosing to have a child is a really optimistic thing. What we hear from parents is that it really crystallizes that feeling of being responsible for someone else. I would also say, like, when you don't have kids, you want to go to Vegas, you want to go to Puerto Rico, you want to go to Italy, sip wine and eat cheese in Tuscany. When you have kids, what do I want to do? What do I like to do? I like to read a book at home by the pool, playing baseball with my kids in the backyard. That is actually sometimes more fulfilling than going on a trip. Playing in the backyard, That's like, so your cost of entertainment decreases dramatically as well. Life isn't about money. It's about joy, faith, family, friends, not your dog. And not your dog being a net negative on your balance sheet. Some of these people who write articles for financial news outlets have no life. And they're miserable people who are living in their mother's basements with nothing better to write about than, they're probably binge watching Netflix. And we've all been guilty of binge watching a show. Dogs don't need a college fund though.